I can honestly remember just the decision making and staring at the bag of pills that I bought, just being like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I know where this is going to lead me.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this week. I'm here with Steve Skaer from Skyline Moving. And wow, you guys are in for a treat today. He has an amazing story of walking through addiction, recovering, growing a successful business, and why he is here on this planet to pour into people. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Steve.
Matt.
How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Happy
being
to
here.
be here.
So you and I just met.
Yeah.
We were talking offline. A lot of the guests we have on the show I've known for a number of years. And I would keep seeing your trucks driving around town. And the thing that caught my eye were the logos, the Skyline Moving logos. I love the Colorado flag and just the way it was lined out. And then when we moved recently, we had a not so great experience with a previous mover. And then I called you and we literally met at my house about a year ago.
Right.
Gave you some coffee. We chatted briefly and then really didn't see each other again.
Yep. That's how it went.
Yeah. And now we're here. We had some coffee. You're done already. I'm still drinking mine. And yeah, man, I'd love to dig into your story because you know, I'm seeing your business grow all over town. You've launched some other businesses. But then you also mentioned something to me on the show. You're like, I don't know if I want to come on the show. Like, I'm not buttoned up. I've got some history. Yeah. So I really want to dig into that. I feel like you've got tons of value to share. So let's dig in. Like, tell me your story a little bit. Like, what landed you here today? How did you get to where you started to where you are?
Well, I'm curious. What did Brian tell you?
Brian told me. He goes, "Hey, do you know Steve?" And I said, "I met him briefly." And he said, "You need to have him on the show." But he didn't tell me anything at all about your story. I said, "No, Skyline moved us. I met Steve briefly at my house." And he said, give him a call.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But he didn't tell me any of your story.
Gotcha. He doesn't even really know a part of my story, but I've been doing business with him for the last 8 years. Stand-up guy. How I got here today? Well, God, I mean, honestly, it's pretty much a miracle at this point. I've battled quite a bit with drug addiction in my past. Ever since I was about 15 years old, went through obviously a lot of adversity throughout there. And during a time of sobriety, decided to start my own business. And that comes with a lot of stressors, a lot of unforeseen, a lot of uncharted waters. And throughout building that business, obviously a lot of successes, a lot of pitfalls. I feel like entrepreneurship really does shed light on your faults and some of the great things that you can bring to people. And as of today, still not perfect, still working on it. But as of today, I'm super, super grateful to be, for one, sober and successful. And as of right now, we're continuing to scale, continuing to grow, continuing to bring value to our customers. So that's a little bit about it.
So you've got Skyline Moving.
Got Skyline Moving.
And now Skyline is starting to peel off into some other ventures, right? And you've got Skyline roll-off services.
Yeah. So started Skyline Moving Company in 2016. And then within the last few years, we have branched off. A little over a year and a half ago, we invested into Skyline Cleaning Services. That's been going really well. That works hand in hand with our move-ins and move-outs. We also did start a junk removal division that goes hand in hand. And most recently, we did start Skyline roll-off services. So just basically rental dumpsters from anywhere from, for commercial projects, for new home builds, to just regular residential people just looking to, get rid of some junk.
Now you're all up and down the Front Range. Like what geography do you serve?
So we do serve the entire state of Colorado. We have a door-to-door billing structure, which allows us to serve most of the state. You know, we do go to Durango, Telluride, we go to Grand Junction, Colorado Springs, all those sorts of areas.
Really cool. Mm-hmm. So you said battling drug addiction since 15. Mm-hmm. When did you decide to become an entrepreneur? Like, how does that story start? Kind of want to know two things, like of getting addicted to drugs. Like, what is that upbringing? When is that first moment? You know, how do you go from not being addicted to, man, I got drug issues right now.
Yeah.
Curious to know about that, but then curious to see kind of how and where entrepreneurship played into that for you.
Well, starting, when I said, 15 years old, I'm in high school, freshman, sophomore year of high school. I did not know what addiction was or what it meant or what it came with, anything of the sort. And I basically just did what I felt was what the cool kids were doing. In football in high school, it's sad, our entire football team was riddled with addiction of opiates, of painkillers. We had a person that on our team whose father owned multiple pharmacies in the area, that was able to give us just unlimited access. And, these were the best athletes were doing it. And I wanted to be a part of that. So I jumped right in. Now, not knowing the seriousness of what I was doing, I did, begin to start using it more on a recreational basis, not just for pain or before or after games to help with an injury. And at one point in my senior year in high school, I got caught with the painkillers on my person, and I ended up getting suspended. I ended up, almost getting expelled. I was unable to play in the all-state game. I had a couple weightlifting records that were taken off of the board. I was demoted from team captain, and I was unable to. I feel like that day I kind of lost my identity of what I had been, telling myself who I was this whole time, a successful athlete who was going to go play college football. And at that moment it was taken away. That was the time I realized that I'm going to, basically start using this to mask my emotions. From there, things did not necessarily get better. I've ended up going to an inpatient treatment for 30 days just to stay out of jail because, I was convicted as a minor.
So this is still in high school?
Yeah, this is all still in high school. So I went to a 30-day treatment center, dad paid for it. I feel like that's kind of like when the seed was planted of what recovery meant, what recovery looked like. I chose to not necessarily, you could say, water or that seed. The very first day I got out of treatment, I started using again. Got in a lot of trouble on probation. Ended up, basically manipulating the justice system to a point where the judge told me the only way that they would allow me out of jail was to get a plane ticket out of the state of Colorado. So my dad showed up to jail. This is fast forwarding to me being 18 years old. And my dad presented a ticket to Orange County. Ended up going to a inpatient treatment in Southern California. Got sober, did sober living for a little bit. Ended up going to play a little bit of college football as well for a junior college out there in Southern Cal. So, getting my life back together then, and decided that the cost of living out there wasn't super ideal. And nor was I as good at football that, where I really, that I wasn't going pro. Let's just put it that way. And so I decided to transfer out from Southern California to Durango to Fort Lewis. And that's where my dad went to school. That's where he graduated. It seemed like a really cool area, and still practicing sobriety at that point. And that's kind of when things got a little bit more serious for me when it comes to the addiction side. I relapsed, and this is a time where Oxycontins, Percocets, and stuff like that started becoming more expensive. This is in 2009 or 2010. And things were getting so expensive. And I was 6-7 hours away from the Denver area. So it was even more expensive where I was at. So I got introduced to, black tar heroin at that point. Crazy amount cheaper, way easier to get. I remember having this conflicting feeling at first, being like, well, I'm this, I'm from a wealthy family, I take care of my body. I thought I was taking care of my body, from an outsider looking in, I work out, I get good grades, and I'm not the type of person that would do black tar heroin. And, that was the conflicting part. And then, once I tried it, and then that, I was hooked.
No going back.
No,
from them.
no.
Yeah.
You mean you're talking the same amount that I was spending on one pill that I'd maybe make last 2 days, I'm now getting almost like a week's worth of supply now. Well, that addiction, it was a pretty fast decline. It went from, using it just a little bit to where I was using it before I would go to class at 8:00 in the morning. I'd use it before going to work out in weights class, before doing presentations on like kinesiology and, on like doing like sports medicine stuff. And during this whole time, it did get to a point where I was actually selling. So I was going to Denver once a week, and I was dealing with the cartel. I didn't know that at the time, though. I got to the point where I had the price points. The money I was spending, it was between $5,000 and $10,000 a week. I know it's a big jump, but it just kind of depended.
This is spending on your personal use.
This was for me to fund my $1,500 a week habit. So I would spend that much, sell it. And so that lasted for about 6 to 8 months, going every week. And that, obviously, it got to a pretty serious point. And at that time, I really didn't understand the severity of what I was doing, not only to myself, because when I'm not sure if, you've had other people talk about this before, but when you're in addiction, super selfish act, and I was very self-absorbed, thinking that, I'm the only one that's suffering from this. I'm doing this to myself. No one else is affected. Well, when I got the drug task force raided my on-campus apartment, and, at that point, they shed the light onto me that, I was affecting a lot more people than I had thought. And that was, definitely a big moment for me, because I was really so self-absorbed and so addicted that I really thought it was just me that I was hurting. And
you're how old at this point? So you first start taking painkillers at 15, high school football team. Now you're in college.
I am 21.
21. So you're talking about a six years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'd been to, so now we're at 2 treatment centers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 treatment centers in 6 years. When the drug task force kicked down my door, there were people inside the apartment using the heroin. And I had about $2,500 worth of heroin in my pocket.
Hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com. Hey, if you're a Christian business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian peer advisory group where we get together on a monthly basis to discuss everything that's important in our life, our business, our families, and our faith. I'm a member and I love being a part of this group. You've got to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. When you go to their website, make sure you check out their Refresh event, which is happening January 11th through the 13th, 2024, up in Estes Park. That can be found at thefoundryadvisory.com/refresh.
I had $30,000 in cash in my safe, and they searched the entire apartment, found the cash, and they had been watching me for about 6 months. So they planned it out really well. They knew I had just gotten back. They knew the money was going to be there, and they knew the drugs were going to be there. Well, for some reason, they didn't search me initially. And one of the kids that was there started running. So I saw like 10 cops run out my apartment. And at that time, I was like, oh my God, I'm taking this in my hand, this giant amount of drugs, and I'm going to shove it in the couch cushion. And right when the cop came inside, he's like, did anyone search him? And I don't know, it was just this crazy experience that I had that the timing was impeccable. Well, I never got arrested. I agreed to become a confidential informant. They sat me down, talked to me about their plan about to, put a wire on me, to get me to do these deals. And, they knew I was dealing with the cartel. I got expelled. Needless to say, I got expelled.
Yep. They're like, check that box. You're
check that box. I'm out of there. So that was a very tough phone call to make to my father. From there, obviously I was escorted off campus. I told my father that I was going to be a CI for them and what they had the plans for. At that time, my dad made a phone call to a couple. Well, actually, one of his best friends represented the Denver Police Department. And he was like, what are the attorneys that you hate going against the most? And those are the two attorneys that I ended up getting. So at that time, I decided to get sober. So I went into another treatment center. Checked all the boxes. I realized that the relationship between me and my attorney, it's a two-way street, obviously, and he can only do so much. If I'm still out there getting high and doing stuff, then there's no point in having these guys on my team. So I, went and got sober at this other treatment center in Greeley, and ended up, checking all the boxes I was supposed to. Really tried to show that I was serious about this, and ended up getting, in hindsight, it's a slap on the wrist. I got 2 years probation and 100 hours community service. And at that time, I was looking at a 6, because they put the 48 years on there as a prison sentence because it was aggravated because it was on college campus. So it went from a 6 to 48 year sentence to the 2 years probation.
Wow.
Yeah. That was, it's crazy. I got chills. It was, I don't know. No one ever thinks that they're going to end up in a place like that. And, having an attorney tell you you're looking at this much prison time, it's crazy.
Was that the wake up call for you? Because you had gone to inpatient twice, and that didn't, you literally came out and you were right back to it.
Right back to it.
Was this time different?
No, it was.
Or it's the severity of what was at stake at that point. You realized that.
The severity of it got me to the point where I was like, well, I'm gonna, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anyone necessarily does well in prison, but I just, I guess I thought I was invincible.
Yeah.
And, I'm not, I think I almost have that. It's not so much today, but that did not leave. I continued, I did get straight for a while.
Okay.
I got straight, I'm 22 years old at this point. I got straight for probably about 6 years.
Okay.
Though all the reasons that, one person gets into addiction, that's a whole nother level, but never addressed really any of that to a point. The treatment centers I went to addressed the problem was the drug use. Talk about it later, but it's really, it's usually a symptom of something else.
So they didn't get down to the deep rooted what that fulfilled for you the first time you did that, and how that continued to do that. Did you figure that out sitting here today? Like, do you feel like you've figured that out? And like, when was that moment?
Man, that moment, my aha moment was when I went to another treatment center. And they had a different way of looking at things, which was really nice. And they really kind of spun it to where, I've basically been living a life that I'm seeking validation through other people. I have this identity, and it's like I'm trying to appease and I guess almost just get people's approval, especially like my father's. And, you take that away, it's like, who am I? And, so, kind of going down that path of like, what is it? Like, what is your symptom? I mean, I've done nothing up until, in these recent years. My entire life, I feel like, has been, I look at it as someone like my behaviors do not show that I love myself, that I respect myself, or, it's like I didn't want success for myself because maybe I felt like I didn't deserve it. I'd have these glimpses of success. Like I would hyper focus on things like exercise and education, men's physique, like bodybuilding, it's like something to take my time and to fill like this void to keep my head busy. Mm-hmm. And, I never addressed the issue. Though I saw success in those things, it was never something that I could, I guess, sustain, because there was always something deeper that was kind of pulling me down.
So did they, in this treatment that you were in, did they pull that back to like a father wound, or that like ultimate desire of a boy who becomes a man to have that validation of dad?
They touched on quite a few things. There's, a couple of things that, we did not touch on that, goes even to before like high school. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they did definitely focus on that part of it for sure. Yeah. My dad, my mom, you tend, through therapy and stuff like that, you realize that as a kid, our verbal communication isn't that good, but our observational communication is right on point. And looking back, I realized that, my perception of what success was what I observed your parents do, right? Or, like you look up to them and you see them, do these things. And in my case, I saw, my dad, by the time I was 5 years old, he was retired at 40. Yeah. So, I saw someone who, what I thought was successful, I saw him as, living a life of partying and helicopter skiing and drug use. And like, this is what millionaires do. Yeah. That's me.
So you saw that, learned that was ingrained to you.
I didn't see that then. I see that now though.
You do?
Okay. I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I see that now. And then I always was like, well, I need to seek out that approval. I need his approval because he's this figure in my mind that's like success. And during that, all I did was I seemed to self-sabotage myself because I was doing it for the wrong reasons.
What did your dad do?
My dad was in oil and natural gas. My grandfather started an oil company in the 80s. First person to do horizontal drilling in Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah. So stuff that took them 30 to 45 days then takes people, days.
Just a little bit now. That's
Just a
made
little
some
different.
advancements.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you didn't see a lot of those things then, the partying and the drug use and all of that, but you see it now. So were you just not, did you observe it and just not register it? Or like, was Dad around a lot? Was he working a lot?
No, I mean, he wasn't working. He he had been, he had me at 35. So, I mean, he was retired by the time I was 5. So, and then my parents divorced at 8 when I was 8, and, a lot of, turmoil there, when it came to the courts and, being split up. And, so I didn't see my dad, until I was about 14 years old, when I decided to move back into his house, and I, left my mom's house. And at that time, what I experienced was, a lot of partying, vacations, kind of a life without consequence.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you learned that and picked that up, and then that transpires into right about 15 there,
Right.
which is where things started happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And I guess I didn't really know the value of money either, at that time. And
so up to this point, so we were just, rolling back a little bit. You were 3rd or 4th treatment center.
Just had completed my 3rd treatment center at 22 years old.
22. And you said that wasn't the end though.
It sure wasn't. No.
So how many did it take?
Well, so far it's been 4.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Done 4 treatments. So, after that center, after that 3rd, I had about, that 6 years clean time. CSU, just doing things extreme, from men's physique shows to, working full time, and, also doing 16 credit hours, very busy, and what I thought was like, I really thought I was good. I thought it was great. That's when we started Skyline Moving. I was going to CSU full time. I had been working for a moving company for the last 3 or 4 years, going to CSU, because I had it's crazy. I had to sit down with a panel of board members from CSU to get accepted because of
the incident.
Yeah. So that was nerve wracking, but they let me in, and as I was working for a moving company, my business partner today, Justin, I got him a job there, and he was just like, God, we can do this better. And that's where Skyline started, was in that time of sobriety, of, motivated clarity, of like hyper-focused, ness. And that's how it got started. And, for the first couple years, it was good. And then, I got in a relationship, bought a house with a girl, and found myself almost dying 3 times off of fentanyl use shortly after that. So it was a really interesting moment. I don't know if interesting is the right word, but I made a very conscious choice to relapse. And today I can honestly remember just the decision making and staring at the bag of pills that I bought, just being like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I know where this is going to lead me. And, and that's where, I didn't know at the time that those pills were laced in fentanyl, but, I had an overdose, in November, really close to Thanksgiving. Had to get incubated. They had to breathe for me. I was starting to turn purple or blue. That wasn't enough. I did it again, and came closer to dying that time, just a couple months later. And I found myself in rehab for a fourth time. This was the first time this last time was the first time that I was in rehab without any legality issues pressing me.
Okay.
No one was telling me to go, really. I mean, well, okay, that's a lie. Sorry. Girlfriend was definitely pushing to go. My dad was like, he doesn't need it. He knows everything about what to do. He's like, you've gone to 3 others. Like, what's the 4th? It's like, he's like, I've gotten to enough therapy where I could teach a class. Well, went in, did the, 2 months of inpatient, very intense therapy near Palmer Lake in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And that was a really profound experience. I mean, they did show me that my drug use was not the issue. And, they've really dug into the reasons of why I was using those drugs. Continued doing inpatient therapy afterwards for a few months. So, 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, inpatient, outpatient therapy. And unfortunately enough, that wasn't enough. So, honestly, this is where that part is where it's like, at this point, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's, I have a lot to lose at this point. We all have a lot to lose at any point, but, I have an established business. I've own a house with a great girl, and I'm choosing again, to tell myself I'm not worth it in one way or another.
Yeah.
And ended up getting, 2 DUIs in like a year and a half.
So you've launched Skyline. This is 2016
Skyline.
Post. Business is growing, successful every
this
year.
Is 2020.
Bigger. Okay.
2020, 2021. I mean, this is recent.
Yeah.
And this is where your supporters looking in, they're like, okay, I'm at this point. It's like, what gives? Like, I am so lost.
A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife, Emily, and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in Northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com. If your life or business are cluttered up with junk right now, then you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts Hauling. Hulk Addicts can come out to your home or business to do anything from removing junk to appliances. Maybe you're demoing or doing construction on a property and you need it cleared out. Maybe you need a big dumpster dropped off that they can roll off later. Make sure to check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. They are serving all of Northern Colorado as well as up and down the Front Range. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. What kind of message would you have for somebody, young kid, teenager, getting into sports? Sports is such a big part of their identity. Whether they know it or not, it's about to be. What would you tell them when drugs and bad choices become present? If you've got somebody listening to this right now.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would reach out. I would reach out to, whether, for me, I don't know if it was necessarily my parents I could reach out to at that time, but to reach out to someone's parents, for advice, for, to figure out what's going on. Because, at that age, you may not have the right tools or you may not know enough to make that right choice. And so I guess, that would probably be my number one thing I wish I would have done before, is reached out for just knowledge, rather than just going with the flow and not asking any questions, because you don't want to seem like you're an outlier. I literally had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no knowledge of the consequences. I did not know what addiction was. I didn't even know what an opiate meant.
Yeah.
I was doing it to be cool and fit in with the rest of the good athletes. So, something that, we don't teach emotional intelligence in school. I wish that was something, a curriculum that people taught, in school, for people to have a better understanding of the emotions they feel, why they feel them, the power that they have. I feel like that would help people really truly identify with who they are and be comfortable with how they are, being comfortable with your emotions, because I wasn't that, and so I know it's kind of maybe a roundabout answer, but I would go to someone and ask for some knowledge with that sort of stuff.
What are you doing now, like current day right now, to love yourself and continue to recover and continue to drive forward in a positive way?
Well, these days, my routines, the structure and everything is quite different. So I'll just be honest with you. I'm a very physical person, and I tend to, just like how I did for those 6 years, I went towards education and working out. So I do tend to immediately jump towards something that I can control.
Yeah.
And that would be the gym. That would be nutrition. That would be my routine, so right now, my routine's very strict. I do show myself, respect by setting boundaries for myself. I don't put myself in situations where I know I would be tempted, but so consistently I'm waking up at a certain time. I don't break promises to myself anymore. That was a big one. You tell yourself you're going to stay clean, or you tell yourself you're going to wake up at a certain time. You tell yourself that you're going to stay on a diet. For the years prior, I broke all those promises to myself. I didn't have a good reputation with myself, so, today I really honor what I tell myself. Like, the relationship that I have with myself is that I'm a man that keeps his word and keeps his promise to myself. Like, I set my alarm for 4:30. Like, I am not hitting that snooze button, because I'm not going to start off my day by, breaking that promise in a sense. So that's been extremely helpful for me. I do continue to work out on a daily. I've really embarked on more of like a you could say I'm on a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
That's one thing. You got your mental. My mental is so tied into my physical, right? Like, how do you change how you feel right now? Like, do something different, So I'm so attached to that. And then that makes me feel like emotionally, like I've done something to show myself that I love myself, is because I put a priority in my health. Well, the spiritual side throughout my life has always been almost, I don't want to say non-existent, but it hasn't been on the forefront, So that's actually a big reason of why I started going and doing yoga and meditation, is to get familiarized with my body and my thoughts and my breathing, and kind of, just trying to kind of get on that path as well right now. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy. I don't project myself out there to be a religious person, but I keep coming into contact with people that are very spiritually solid. Like, they just keep coming into my life.
So would you call them, are you running into people that follow a particular, so, hey, I'm a Jesus follower, or I follow?
Yeah.
Muhammad, Muslims, Christians.
It's all, it's Jesus, it's the Christian based, my personal trainer sat me down, and was just like, Steven, he's like, you've gone through so much, and he's like, you're still, successful. You're a great leader, and, people, a lot of empathy, so on and so forth. And, he's the first one to really want me to kind of go on that path with him, kind of open that door. And then so happens the gentleman I told you about made those padfolios.
Yes.
He's another person that came in and has just, and then, I meet, people like yourself, and it just seems like at every corner or every turn I'm making, like, whether they're attracted to me or we're attracted to each other, it seems that, it's kind of, you could say that God is kind of guiding me in that direction.
So what are you doing with that? Are you leaning into that? Is that scary for you?
It is
Does
scary,
that give you like
sure.
a curiosity? Because I remember, I found Jesus in the back of a police car, and I don't know if you've heard.
No, I had no idea.
But, I wasn't doing heroin. I was drinking, smoking dope, and starting to experiment with other, stronger drugs, right? And I don't know. I'm glad we didn't meet when we were both in college. Up at CSU, yeah. And I mean, I was hanging out with the college painters, and a certain group within that company were out partying, and I had all the guys on campus, stop me. Hey, take this survey. Want to come to a Bible study? And then I had the Bible box guy in the plaza, standing up on a box in the plaza, telling everybody they're going to hell, unless they repent right now and follow Jesus. I'm like, you guys are wackadoodles, man. And I'd remember some of the kids from middle school, high school that always seemed very judgmental. So my experience with Christians and Jesus followers was not a good one, not one that I wanted to associate with. But I had all these people alongside that were just loving on me. They were just there. They're like, hey, I know you're going to go get wrecked and drunk and wasted and high this weekend, but if you ever decide not to, come over. We're having a get together. We're having a barbecue. We're having a Bible study. I want to go get drunk. I want to go get high. And then I was standing, close to death, middle of a field in Fort Collins, trying to climb somebody's fence to get home right after it struck New Year's. Yeah, and a cop comes and scoops me up, throws me in the back of the police car. He didn't quote a Bible verse. He didn't say he was a Christian. I don't remember who he was. It was a Fort Collins police officer. And he goes, hey, man, you've got two options. He goes, I can drive you to detox, throw you in the drunk tank, take you to jail, do the paperwork. He's like, but I've got 20 more of you guys to go pick up right now. He said, can you tell me where you live? Can you tell me your address and how to get there? And I think that was his gauge. If I could tell him where I lived and how to get home, then I wasn't that drunk or high, whatever it was. So he drives me home, and he was very stereotypically police-like. Hey, what are you doing out here? You could be dead. He came from a big city, and he would scoop people up and take them to the morgue, and then had to call their parents. So he kind of changed his story, and he said, hey man, next time I see you, I want to see you again. He goes, I don't want to see you. I don't want to come scoop you out of a field. And he showed me love in a real smack in the face kind of way. Right. And didn't quote a Bible verse, takes me to the door, and he's like, hey man, I hope you start making better choices, and Happy New Year was the last thing he said. And then I woke up that next morning, like severely hungover, really sick. And I was like, man, I could have died. What happens when you die? What kind of choices have I been making? And it was just all these really stereotypical, hypocritical, judgmental Christians that I'm like, that's what Jesus is all about. I want nothing to do with that.
Right.
And then I'm like, but this guy, he just comes along and kind of removed those scales from my eyes. And then I really started pursuing, like, who is Jesus and why did he come here? Is his story true or not? Right? Like, is that story true? Because if it is, dang, that's a story, man. And you're saved by what he did for us.
Right.
Yeah. So I read a couple books by Lee Strobel, Case for Faith.
Christ, yeah.
Case for Christ, Case for Faith. And I'm like, I decided to go, this story is true. This story is real. And I've got to make a choice. So yeah, 2 weeks after that, it was January 14th, 2001. I gave my life to Jesus, went out the next weekend, was drinking again, stopped the drugs. So he's like very much peeled and pruned these things away from my life. And I just encourage you to keep pursuing that, finding out who he who he really is. I think that it's no accident that we're sitting on this podcast, or the guy that did the pad folios. There's something in there for you.
Yeah, so, no, I agree. I mean, that's the first book that my trainer gave me was that Case for Christ.
Yeah. I met Lee just like 4 months ago. Yeah. He spoke at a conference at our son's school. And I came up and I told him the story, and he was like, man, because he was off the rails too. He was an atheist, and he went out to prove the story wrong.
Mm-hmm. Working for the Chicago Tribune or something, right? Yeah. And he saw his wife, her life was continually to improve, and like her attitude and everything like that. Yeah. And then that's what motivated him. Yeah. 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 Awesome story.
So it's scary though. So like, what is that exploration looking like for you these days? So like, you've got the physical down, right? You've gotten to.
I got the routine. I got the physical down. I got the health part down. This is like, you say this is very uncharted waters. Mm-hmm. What bugs me is that, it's been probably since, I don't know, February of this year, I've told my trainer I was going to go to church with him, and I haven't. And, that bugs me a little bit, sitting here today, but a lot, and it just, that journey right now, I mean, it's scary. I'm apprehensive, I don't know what harm would come from it. I don't think it's anything about me being hurt. I'm not really 100% sure what that looks like. I was just in a wedding in Santa Barbara over the weekend, and I got to tell you, their relationship with God, I mean, was just like flowing through them on every instance, like everything that they do. And it was beautiful. Yeah. It was actually really touching. It got me, got me teary-eyed at that wedding. And I guess it's something that I don't know if I want to use the word envious of. It's just something I don't know a whole lot about. And I guess I'm not 100% familiar with like the idea of the belief. So I guess your head gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah. I know as I was exploring, I'm like, this can't be like, how can this be that there's this perfect love that I'm not judged no matter what I did or how many times I did it, that Jesus loves me and he's there for me and he's not casting shame or judgment. Like he has a standard, there's a standard, but you're going to miss it. Everybody's going to miss it to a certain degree. And you can't weigh how much you've missed it versus how somebody else missed it. I feel like I felt back then, like this can't be. Like this just can't be, because I had never experienced that in my story in different ways. So it was scary. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was super scary. I just encourage you to keep pursuing it, man.
Yeah, I will. And I feel more comfortable about it today than I did yesterday. Yeah. So
like what does that next step for you look like in that spiritual or that faith exploration? Do you think that's going to church? Do you think that's...
Well, I do think I'm a big believer of, you are the company you keep. And I feel like having, I also, for me to be focused at work or in my relationship or in whatever aspect of life it is, I tend to like to go to those places. When I go to work and sit at my desk, like I'm at work, I'm at my desk, I'm focused at that. And so I think for like my mindset to be in a location that's devoted for that purpose of belief and spirituality, I think would help me. And just being around people that are open to it and are believers would probably make me more, maybe make me more comfortable or, about that. So I think that would probably be my first step, would just to go to church.
Love that, man.
Yeah.
Love it. So what's next? I mean, we didn't really talk much about the business, right? So Skyline, like that's okay. We'll come back. We'll do another one. So Skyline's growing. You've got these different verticals of cleaning and dumpster roll off and the other things that you're doing. But like, what's the big vision for that? Just after kind of summing up your story, 35 years and everything that you've gone through and overcome, you're a successful entrepreneur and you've struggled with addiction, right? And you're working through that and you're like knocking on this door of faith.
Right.
But like what's in the cards for you that you see, that you hope for moving forward?
You know, my just recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had the most excitement that I've had in this business that I felt in a long time. You know, like, of course, like buying new trucks is great. You know, and, you know, hitting sales goals is great. Starting new business is great. And adding value to our services is great. That makes me feel good. But it didn't touch the surface on how I felt when my idea came to fruition about helping my employees on something outside of the workplace. So the level of excitement I got from that, you know, made me kind of think about, you know, what do I have here? I have here at Skyline Moving and all the other businesses. It's a vehicle to drive me to where, you know, maybe where I want to be. And you know, and the value that, you know, we're giving these guys outside of work is, you know, we're doing our first ever budget workshop, you know, because when I was a mover, I was making darn good money. No one ever taught me anything about what to do with that money. No one taught me about a credit score. No one taught me about mortgages. And then me being able to go through what I've gone through, to have no credit, to now having perfect credit, and just, you know, taking these guys and being like, I want to help you, you know, and just to see how they're receiving it and just being like, wow, they care. And it's like, yeah, I do care.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, was a huge part of, you know, my goal, you know, to get to a point where just want to help people. And, you know, down the line, of course, you know, I don't know if I want to be in the moving industry forever, but, you know, we have a really special brand. We have a really awesome culture. And, you know, I'd like to build that to a point where I'd like to be able to sell it at one point, but I'm not going to just not work. You know, I want to get involved with people in recovery and tie that into health and fitness, because that's one thing for me where if it wasn't for the gym, if it wasn't for that, you know, the gym is always there for me to go and release some sort of stress or, you know, the choice of prioritizing, you know, what I put in my body, that choice is always there. And how that tied in. And basically, I feel like that really did save my life. I would like to start a new venture in that regard, to be able to help struggling drug addicts or alcoholics through fitness, nutrition, and health in some sort of business aspect down the road.
That's big. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody listening to this that's struggling right now with addiction, right? And any of them, right? Mm-hmm. You got booze, pills, porn, overworking. I mean, the list goes on, right? All of those things that you can be addicted to. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that you deserve to have a chance, and you deserve to give yourself that chance. And, you know, I would tell them that I think that probably deep down inside that they know that, and to give themselves a chance to show themselves that they love them, that they love themselves.
Yeah, man, I love it, dude. Thank you for just opening up your story and sharing that here.
Yeah.
What else would you like to share before you go? We've got just a few minutes left, and then we're gonna jump to the color card in just a minute. But
cool.
What do you want to make sure that you get a chance to share with people that are going to be watching? We've got tons of Northern Colorado business owners, business leaders, you know, in this space that are tuning into these episodes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing I could share that I've been really noticing such a big impact lately. And of course, we all know how important relationships are. I never really thought of it as the relationship. You know, when I think of relationships, I think of more of family and then intimate side. But really, like the relationship had the importance of it in the workplace and that you have with your employees. And my relationship with the people that work for me directly reflects on how they treat their customers.
Yeah.
And the importance of that, I think, is a huge part of Skyline Moving Company's success, is that, it does start from the top. And, people want to feel connected. People want to feel welcome. They want to have a sense of value of where they work, and they want to be appreciated. And, I find that going at it with a sense of kindness and understanding, has really gone a really long way to where they're showing that sort of empathy and that kindness and understanding to our customers as well.
Yeah.
And I guess, the more that you give in that sense, when it comes to your time and your patience and your understanding, it comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think that's been a big part of our success today.
You're the epitome of pour into people, right? Which is just this relentless contribution. And I can tell you, just based on the experience that we had with your crew, with your guys, they came out, it was like 3 trucks all day. It was a long day.
Yeah.
And they were getting to the end of the day over at the new house. And I would have been done. There's no way I could have pulled a day like that. And they were just great. And it's interesting. Your nicest guy, the guy that I thought was the kindest, and I'm not sure if he's with you anymore. Bald head guy, big dude, goes to the gym, tattoos like on the face, on the neck. I think does some jujitsu training. I bumped into him at the gym, and I don't know if he's still with you, but
he's at a sober living house.
Yeah, we were. We didn't talk much, but we're kind of looking at each other like, where do I know him? Oh, he moved to the house, and we went up and chatted. Dude, he had amazing things to say about you.
Oh, did he?
He did, and I don't know what he's got going on right now. We spoke briefly, but he was super, super kind. Took him a minute. He goes, oh yeah, I remember your house. He's like, that was a lot of house to move. Like, it was a lot of stuff. It wasn't a lot of house, a lot of stuff. So,
yeah.
But that's awesome to be able to run into those guys in a scenario where like they can just shoot real. Like, what are they saying when you're not there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dustin was one of the first people I hired that took everybody by surprise. Yeah. When we first started Skyline, everything was about image. It was, me, I was really built. My partner was really built. We had a bunch of like ex-CSU football players, all clean cut and built and ready to go. And I found myself to be very judgmental off people's appearances, because it's like, we're strangers going into people's homes. And the longer we're in business, the more I've been proven wrong that, appearances, and the tattoos and piercings, that's not what makes the person. And, they give people a shot. And so Dustin being a person that is a little rough around the edges from, first, the way I just focused on how he was talking and his response to the questions I was asking. And I was like, this guy's going to be a good fit. Yeah. And, Dustin is honestly a person I see. I was like, that guy is like what really proved me to point that stop being so judgmental. Yeah. But yeah, Dustin's good guy, good dude. And I know he's doing his own tattoos now. So that's where he's working.
That's what we talked about. That's right. That's what we talked about. He's doing tattoos. Mm-hmm. No, thanks for sharing him with us, man. He was a great dude. So we're wrapping up. When you came in here, you grabbed a color off the color wall.
Yes.
And you wrote down a statement that you want to leave with the world when you leave it. What is that statement?
Yeah, very short. Be where your feet are.
Steven.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, man.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate
the wrap. Hey, if you're a faith-based father and you have a son who is entering into adolescence and manhood, you've got to check out an experience that we have June 2024. It is the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I'm going to be taking a group of men and their sons over to Spain to hike some of the most beautiful scenery through northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. We're going to hike 6 days, 70 miles, 200,000 steps, and have completely disconnected, unplugged, uninterrupted time with our sons. We are going to grow and bond and deepen our relationships with our sons through some very intentionally curated adventures, challenges, and experiences. And we're going to do so in the company of other faith-based men who have the same desire to grow and deepen their story with their son. If you're interested in this adventure with us, go to mattshoup.com. Click the Go to Spain button and check out the father-son hike of a lifetime.